Okay, welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter meeting. This is our 187th class. Today is October 30th. Today we have the honor of having Lora McCoy present Strategically Driving Agility. Some of you may know me from webinars or chapter events. Others may be joining for the first time. Either way, I like to start with a quick intro. My name is Thea Soren. I'm the president of the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter, and I've been a business analyst for nearly 30 years. My career spans industries like medical diagnostics, tax software, and nuclear power, and I've had the honor of contributing to the BABOC and founding the BA Force Multiplier movement. Beyond chapter leadership, I'm a business analyst, consultant, trainer, mentor, supporting professionals from first steps into leadership. Today's BA's masterclass is about growth, connection, and impact. Whether you're a new BA or refining your approach, Tampa Bay IIBA is here to support your journey and celebrate your contributions. Let's dive in. For those of you who are new to the IIBA, the International Institute of Business Analysis is the global governing body for business analysts. With about 30,000 members worldwide, 120 chapters, and 7 certifications, we are excited about making the world better, one business, one project, and one life at a time. I just said that the IIBA is the governing body for business analysts. This means that it's the best known and highly respected certifications are from the IIBA. Using BABOC as the guide, my goal is to teach you what you need to know to
Thea, did
be
you want to
better.
share your screen? Sorry.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Let me do that. If I can find my Zoom bar.
I know you're talking the slides, but we weren't seeing them.
I was doing a fantastic job too. And it must be behind this presentation. Here we are. Share, and share. There we go. Sorry, I got to get back to my presentation now. There. What are the benefits of joining the IIBA? Access to training provided by chapters across the globe, complimentary access to over 11,000 outstanding books, including the BABOC, along with webinars and additional resources, and discounts on certification exams. Let me introduce you to the board of the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter of one of the 120 IIBA chapters. These are the folks who work behind the scenes for your benefit. We appreciate them working so diligently to benefit our participants. In fact, each of them were nominated for Regional Volunteer of the Year, and of the 5 finalists for the region, these 3 are finalists. Congratulations and good luck to all 5. IIBA chapters are in major cities all around the world. If there isn't an active chapter near you, we can talk about you starting a chapter, or you're welcome to the Tampa Bay IIBA. Members of the Tampa Bay IIBA Florida are not restricted to residents of Florida. In fact, we have members from all over the globe. If you do not have an IIBA chapter, Tampa Bay can be your chapter. Our vision, the Tampa Bay IIBA, is building a thriving community of empowered business analysts. Why would you choose to join the Tampa Bay chapter? We offer multiple training sessions each week, including CBAP prep, coaching, and we build relationships with beneficial partners, all to benefit our participants. You can view our upcoming events at our website, and updates are posted across LinkedIn and on Facebook. And by the end of this year, we will have put on over 200 events. All those events are available to you on YouTube. To get the index of all those recordings, go to Bob's Amazing Index at rpchurchill.com. Thank you to Bob Churchill. And exciting announcement, the Tampa Bay IIBA chapter is one of 5 finalists for a global award, all thanks to the efforts of our board. You may wonder what has been going on for the Tampa Bay IIBA in the last several months. Let me tell you, with a strong team of exceptional mentors, some acting as team members, we ran a SDLC experience workshop totaling 90 individuals from all over the world. 6 teams were given real-life case studies to solve. What we hadn't anticipated was about half of those participating had never been in an SDLC role, nor had seen it done. The performance of those committed team members was impressive. Even those experienced reported improvements in their abilities, understanding tools and techniques. And when the final projects were revealed, it was beyond impressive. In fact, let me tell you, the final reveal blew us away. Their work is on display for the next 12 months at the baforcemultiplier.com, and the video is on our YouTube channel. We continue to support those on their certification journey. These students have reached out to tell us that our training and mentoring was a big part of their success in achieving their certification. We've added a new name to the wall of certification. You can see Lizzie Hoffman down here. She contacted me and told me that although we have never spoken, she's used our study group videos on YouTube to prepare for her CBAP, and she passed. Of these 28 folks, a majority have gone on to lead IIBA chapters here and around the world because we make leaders here. We appreciate our associations and partnerships. Our biggest partnership, though, is our members and our participants. We thank you. We are also partnered with over a dozen other IIBA chapters worldwide, 2 chapters that are just forming. If you want contacts with any of these chapters, reach out to me. I'll be glad to make introductions. We have also partnered with the DOBAC group based out of the UK and these in the Tampa Bay area, and 4 recruiting companies and 4 training companies, all for the benefit of our participants. To keep up with our events, join our LinkedIn group and IIBA Tampa Bay chapter in Florida, USA, right here. And also go to our website, tampabay.iiba.org, and select events and subscribe to notifications, and you won't be left out. One of the benefits of being a participant in our chapter is that you get discounts. Watermark Learning has given us 40% off of all of their events and trainings. Adaptive US has given us 20% off of all of their live classes and on-demand courses, excluding IIBA exam vouchers. Adaptive does have an impressive guarantee. If you take a certification course from them and you don't pass the certification test, they will pay for you to retake it. If you take it a second time and you still don't pass, they'll pay for you one more time to retake it. That's standing behind their training. Coming up on November 13th and 14th is Global Business Analysis Day with presentations from around the world. It's absolutely free, but I encourage you to lean in and participate. Next week, Laura Brandenburg is going to present the BA framework that builds into influence, impact, and authority. I'm looking forward to that. The week after, Christy Hughes is going to provide the presentation from Insight to Action using StrengthsFinder to elevate your BA practice. Please don't underestimate the value of these 2. They are wonderful. I'm now going to go to our presentation and turn the screen over to Laura.
Thank you very much, Thea. Okay, so really briefly, I will share a little bit about me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you while I talk to you. I have been in the world of business analysis for a little over a quarter of a century. I'd rather not say the exact number, and calling it a quarter of a century sounds a lot cooler, right? It doesn't make me feel as old, so we're going to stick with that. I have been very involved with IIBA for a very long time. My only pause at IIBA was during COVID, for various reasons for my family. And in that time, I served as several roles with my local chapter for approximately 8 to 10 years before I moved into regional director for IIBA. I still volunteer and I help out Jared Garai off and on when he reaches out. And I support my local chapter. So I'm still very engaged. I am currently actively participating in more strategic work. So I blend business analysis at a strategic level with business architecture. And that's been my focus as of recent years, which is one of the reasons I'll be sharing with you some about strategy today. I have done this work in so many industries. I'd rather not try to count them out. I've worn all the hats that we wind up wearing because our skill sets are so versatile. So I've got various perspectives, and those are some of the things I'm going to bring into what I'm going to share with you today. So today we're going to talk about strategy, right? And strategy is all about pausing for a minute to think about what should we do, right? Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So we should question things and determine whether it's actually appropriate. You know, the word agility flies all over the place anymore, and there are several perspectives of it. When I talk about driving agility, I'm not talking about the agile methodology, you know, that framework for implementing change. I'm talking about enabling business to respond to the world around it quickly with agility, right? So there's business agility, and then there's the agile framework in projects, and I'm going to focus on business agility. So we're going to talk about what it means to be strategic in this world that we're in, where everyone's impatient and they want to get where they want to get yesterday. So it's hard to get them to pause. But if you don't pause, everything stays chaos, right? And chaos does not drive successful change. Now, you don't want to be too structured either. So I like to call it, you know, our world. We don't turn everything into complete structure. What we do is we structure the chaos so it can be successful and innovative at the same time. Because structured chaos, that's where you get innovation. If you're too structured, you don't innovate. If you're too chaotic, you can't be stable. We're going to talk about how to meet those things in the middle effectively. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you've got questions, I am watching the chat on the side. So if you have questions, please toss them in the chat. I will often weave my answer into what I'm sharing with you. And if I can't, I will find a good spot to pause. And you're always welcome to, and if your question is something that would be better as a dialogue, I'll ask you to unmute and interact with me if you're okay with that. All right. Okay. So let's talk about strategically driving agility. Morris Chang, a very bright mind in business, mentioned that without strategy, execution is aimless, and without execution, strategy is useless. I can't tell you how many times I have watched an organization go straight to execution, and then after a ton of time and money, they go, oh, well, we solved the wrong problem, or we picked the wrong solution, or we caused this other unintended negative consequence, right? And then I see people, and I do this today. I get hired to help organizations evaluate their challenges from a strategic perspective and build roadmaps so that they have an understanding of building today with tomorrow in mind. But guess what? If you don't have the right mentality, and if you don't have the right tools, and you don't record things the right way, the strategy becomes shelf product, and it doesn't actually bring the value it should. So I'm going to talk to you about how, you know, there are a lot of organizations that do strategy that becomes useless because no one knows how to execute on it. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about, how to make it usable, livable, right? It needs to be, strategy should be a living thing that we are constantly engaged in while we are making our worlds a better place through execution, okay? So we're going to talk about what does it even mean to change strategically. We will talk about why it's so important, even though everyone around you is, I call it, it's a syndrome that I like to refer as, I refer to it as, it's that instant gratification, get there yesterday, it's not going to be needed tomorrow anyway. That's the mindset that we struggle with in many situations. So I'm going to talk about why it's so important with that mindset to be strategic. And then I'm going to give you some practical application tools that you can use to bring strategy to life. That's how you make it impactful. That's how you make it stick. How many of you have seen a strategic document that's pages and pages and pages of words? Right? All words. So we were just chatting and having fun about Star Trek and Star Wars and Lord of the Rings. Let me ask you, have you guys ever seen the illustrations or watched the movies of those? Did it not change how you understood the author's intent? Right? Because you and I can read the same book and we're painting completely different pictures in our heads unless we have something to go on together. So I'm going to give you some tips, tricks, tools that you can use to make that happen. So what does it mean to change strategically? I'm all about cubing things. I don't know how it happened. It just, I don't know, became fun, right? So I have this whole thing about the power of positive perspective because I had gone through, You would not, if you knew me and interacted with me in my current iteration of life, you would never guess where I came from and what I've been through. So I have had to learn how to see the world differently. And then that just kind of bled into how I see strategy, and I call it R cubed. It's the right perspective, finding the right needs so you can drive the right strategy. That's where you reach long-term success, not these little pockets of, oh, it worked. Oh, oops. 6 months later, oh, didn't really think about that part, right? So it's about thinking through things and thinking long term. So what does right perspective mean? I mean, that can mean a lot of things. When I say practicing the power of positive perspective, that's all about choosing to see the world a certain way, right? Jocko Willink talks about when you get a challenge in front of you, do you go, oh, that's a challenge? Or do you go, good, I'm going to grow, I'm going to learn, right? So this is different than that. The right perspective in strategy, in chat, and sorry, I like people to interact with me. So in chat, toss in there for me. How often do you run into a situation where someone says, I have this challenge or opportunity, and others around you, not you clearly because you're a business analyst, but others around you are saying, oh, I've got a solution, we should do this. How often? Is it rarely, sometimes, or often? You have it so often, you're gonna like give me a time frame. That's awesome. Often, yes. And I can't tell you, one of my first projects at my current employer, I had a sales resource give me a lift and shift that was over $500,000 for a 10-year-old application that was a mess. If it's 10 years old and it hasn't been maintained very effectively in the last 5, the likelihood that it is what they need is low, right? So you reevaluate. It's about thinking about what is being asked of you. And by the way, it's good that I build relationships as fast as I do because I had to ask them for double the budget and double the time in the first 2 weeks of the project. And because they trusted me, they agreed. But the point here is you shouldn't be put in that situation. You should pause for a moment and think about what's the bigger picture here? Why do we need to change? And not just why, but what is upstream from the challenge I'm solving? And who does it feed? Because understanding the upstream, what we're talking about, and the downstream can completely alter your conversation. Very often, here's an example. I had a conversation where there was a manufacturing organization and they were struggling getting good insight from their behaviors. So they were like, we need a centralized data capability. So we need a data foundation and we need to feed everything into it. And we just need to push all this data there. And I come in, I'm gonna give you a, but wait, there's more, like infomercial attitude here. And I'm gonna make you wait to know the tool. But there's a tool that I can use in 30 minutes and I can figure out what should we do? What should we focus on? And I did that with them. And guess what? They weren't ready. We would have had them spend so much time. Oh my God. Yes. You're so good. Yay. So we, when I went in there and I did a SIPOC and I'm getting them to talk about this and talk beyond what they're immediately focused on, what they realized is, resources kept trying to get them to do a thing. And then at the end of the call, I'm just that BA on the call, right? I did a technique and then I, let everyone talk. And then someone on the client side said, I want to know what Laura thinks we should do, right? Simple tools and having the right conversation can gain you authority in that conversation so that you can help that client or that organization, whether it's yours or outside of yours, to truly make a difference in their world. So it's thinking big pictures. I call it building today with tomorrow in mind. You don't want to spend a ton of time and money now, only to find out that your foundation you laid won't handle your new family need in that home that you need an extension for. Right? So we need to build a really healthy foundation. That's what the right perspective gives you, is an understanding of what's the bigger picture and what do we need to do here. That leads you into understanding what are the true needs, not the spoken surface symptoms. People are great at recognizing what hurts. They are not necessarily great at understanding why. because they are too close to it, right? And if you bring in technologists or other resources that are really familiar with technology and they love solving pain, they will immediately go to the technology they're familiar with. Whereas we need to say, but what do we need to solve? What are the right needs for us to address so that we're spending our time and money the best we can? Because in the world you're in today, waste doesn't work, right? Everything moves so fast anymore. It's so much different than when I grew up. So what this leads you to is figuring out the right strategy that truly makes a difference for that organization, right? And now this is not easy to sell to an organization or a group of people or to a company that hurts right now. I hurt. I need my pain gone. Yes, but do you want your pain to come right back in a different way or worse? Okay. So it's important that we build that right strategy so that we can be in the longer term efficient. You know, I've had organizations or resources or stakeholders say, but we know what's wrong with us and we know what we need to do. Why can't we just do that? And I have to tell them, okay, that's great. And that's helpful for us to figure out the short term, but do you know what that's going to mean tomorrow for you? Well, no, but tomorrow's tomorrow. Yes, but do you want to have to pay? So it's like, yeah, we'll get there faster to a solution, but then I'm going to pay a lot of money to undo redo to get you what you actually need later. So it's about long-term efficiency. It's about not being impatient and short-term in your thinking. So that's where we want to get them to focus. Now, I will where I work, I have gotten us to do various different types of strategies, right? Most business analysts that I work with and most customers that I support are in project strategy phase. That's where we need a CRM, or we need to improve efficiency with this function, or we need to do this, or we need to do that. We need to implement this thing. Project strategy is where that helps us. But the business strategy is really valuable. Exactly. It is definitely. So they think 12 months is long term, but it's not. That's not long term. That's a very good point. So we have different levels. Now, you don't have to start at any one level of strategy, but I'm going to talk about the three major levels and then I'll talk about some nuances that are within each one. So first is business. You know, companies, let's say that you've got an organization that wants to improve their bottom line. Well, where should we start? Well, we should start here. Why? Well, because that's directly touching the customer. But is the customer unhappy with that thing? Well, I don't think so. Well, then why do we start there? What area of your business is posing the highest risk to your long-term and short-term success? Most companies can't answer that. And that example I gave you about the manufacturing organization that was trying to get a centralized data repository, well, that you're talking about your whole company has data that you need to centralize. Where should you start? What areas have the biggest bang for your buck? What areas will have immediate impact and you shouldn't do other areas before them? What areas have the most immediate impact? What areas need to be done because they're a root of other activities in your organization and things like that? So with business strategy, and I'll be giving you techniques that you can use in each one of these. For business strategy, it's about helping an organization understand the overall health of their organization. Not one different department, not one specific activity, but the overall health. Very often an organization has an idea and the area of their organization that needs attention the soonest is usually in the top 5 that I find, but it's not always the top 1. Okay. So what I do is I get them to think bigger picture. I only need 30 minutes to an hour with each functional vertical, and I can help figure out what level is their maturity, where are their biggest risks, what area needs to be addressed before I can centralize data, before I can automate, before I can improve a process, right? So business is understanding the overall health of the organization. What are the capabilities in the organization that make their value proposition possible? And this is not the same kind, I don't do the same kind of strategy that you will often find in like your McKinseys and PwCs and Boston Consulting. I do something that's a little more functional and a little more everyday for them to actually grasp a hold of and execute on. And it's very, very specific to them. I might bring in industry insight or experience with other customers or something like that, but it's about them, not about big picture, what everyone else is doing, right? And then once we've identified those top elements and we prioritize it based on risk to the organization's ability to provide value, then we just start ticking those things off. We start going down the list and we do functional strategy. Functional strategy is a lot like where I need my accounting team to pay invoices faster. Well, why? What do you think's impeding that? I don't know. Well, let's figure that out together, right? This is where, so business strategy, you get a lot more business architecture, a little less business analysis. Functional is where you truly blend the two together. That's almost half and half between architecture and business analysis. And that's where you start doing things like you start understanding the process behaviors and the cultural expectations of people doing their daily jobs. And you start understanding how do they work with their data, what tools are actually working for them or not. What are they doing just because they've always done it? And they should stop, right? This is where we start figuring that out. And we build it with pictures. All of this is pictures. Now, mind you, I give the words, right? You always give the words. But I build pictures that make those words tangible and consumable. Okay? Project is what most of us are aware of. I need to implement the CRM. Great. What are the requirements? I don't know. Well, let's figure that out together holistically. Now, in project, you have a little bit of functional like process understanding, things like that. But when I do a functional project, I don't dig into, oh, well, it should track this specific data, or it should have this button that does this thing. That's project strategy. Okay, so functional is more about overarching and identify we need to improve these 5 systems and we need to change these processes this way and your people need to be upskilled this way. So functional strategy is bigger, and then in functional we find our projects that we need to do. Once we know what our projects are, preferably objectively, right? Driven out with data and conversations that are reasonably objective. Now we start digging into specific implementation, right? We need to implement the CRM. What does that look like? We need to build this custom application. What are the capabilities of that? And what does that mean? We start building backlogs. We start understanding. Now in here, you should never throw tech on a bad process. So project involves detailed process improvement specifically related to a project you're going to do, right? An implementation of a project. Now, do you guys, in the majority of your experience, do you experience largely technology projects? Or do you get a chance to do just process improvement projects? Just skill set projects? Oh yeah, just breaks faster. Exactly, Cliff. Do you guys ever, are most of you engaged in like technology projects, or do you get sometimes an opportunity to just fix a process even if technology is not involved? So Alicia gets to do both. In my past, it was majority technical, right? I was considered BA as a technical role. And by the time I'm done with most of the places I go, technology is only one kind of project they do. They don't want to change processes without a BA that works on my team helping them, because they bring objectivity in. So project is not specific to technology. A project is any kind of defined change initiative that plans on improving for the future. That can be people, process, data, technology, or any combination of. Okay? All right. So other common strategies. Market strategy. This is a lot of what you find with your big Cs, your big consulting firms, right? Where they look at the market and they tell you, hey, the market's shifting this way, your business needs to be able to adjust this way, things like that, right? Product strategy. This is where you have like product owners. You work for a company that builds a product they sell, whether it's software, a physical product, whatever. I actually had a student once who was, I was so excited. His title was business analyst, but they had him defining product need, right? Product owners should be a business resource that is responsible for the success of a product. The business analyst pairs with that product owner to make sure that we are defining things objectively. The closer you are to a thing, the harder it is to be objective, right? So product, this individual actually took the feedback from guest surveys that stayed at the hotel, and he helped redesign the rooms. physically, right? It was fascinating to me. I'd never had a BA. There was a student of mine that did that. That excited me. So product strategy, organizational structure. You'll see a lot of ACM individuals doing organizational structure strategy. Now, ACM, adoption and change management, is a lot more about culture and helping people adopt a change. But business analysis is where we figure out what should that change be, right? And that's where we should be involved and facilitating those earlier conversations of, do we have the right structure? What should the right structure be for efficiency, quality, effectiveness? And then we pair with an adoption resource that helps us understand, how consumable is that? Will it be adopted? And we work together for organizational structure. Merger and acquisition. How many of you, yes or no, have been involved in mergers and acquisitions? Okay. Anyone else on the line? Yes or no? Multiple. Okay. When the organization that you worked with or for that did that, did they mostly look at the financial reports and the market position? Yeah. You know what they say? Culture eats strategy for lunch. So in the world that I'm in, we have customers that do merger and acquisition, and I strongly encourage them to not just consider the finances. Don't just consider the marketplace. Look at the two cultures. I have customers that have done so many acquisitions and said, you can just be you. 12 years later, it's a huge mess. And IT is struggling, and finance is struggling to roll it all up, right? And there's a difference between merger and acquisition. If you're just acquiring, you mostly need ACM to help those new people coming in adopt. Because when I acquire you, that means you're going to become us. You're going to act like us. You're going to be us. You're going to work with us intimately. Merger means, and that's the safest, healthiest option. Merger is where we say, hey, we're buying you because you do something really great. We do some great things too. Let's figure out what the best of both greats are and merge them together. That's the strongest success, but guess what? It's the harder thing to do. And I mean, everyone likes that easy button, right? Staples has a huge one for their commercials. So, but easy, you pay for later, right? Usually, not always. I won't speak in absolutes. Okay, strategy, big picture, execution, detailed. Okay. Strategy, overarching. I think about all the phases, not just a single effort in time. Strategy thinks about the long term, we execute near term. So strategy should think about that bigger picture long term while enabling short, rapid implementation of value that feeds and grows into the long term. I tell you what, when I do strategy and I have someone on the call say plan, I'm like, no. I'm not defining individual tasks and timeframes they're going to be done in. I'm helping you wrap your arms around, what are your problems? What do they look like long term? I'm going to build you a roadmap, usually from a now, next, later, and I'm not going to say this date, this date, this date. I'm going to say Q1, the first half of next year. I don't know. It depends on what we find, right? So strategy is hard for people. People love to understand a thing and be able to predict a thing because it's safe. Okay. Strategy is about letting go of your need for control and intimate understanding and being able to grasp the idea's bigger picture and understand you're not going to know everything right away. You'll figure it out as you go, as you work through it, but taking a step back. So those of you that are working in projects where you're trying to have a strategic conversation, because business analysis is strategic by nature, okay? It's supposed to be. So when you're working in that, how often do you wind up having someone ready to dive down a rabbit hole for all the detail of the data when you're not even sure you want that data right now? Again, give me a chat. Often, sometimes, rarely. They do, they jump. Often, constantly. Exactly, right? So us being able to psychologically manage that room and get people feeling heard, but also buying patience, that is challenging. And that's why we use not just conversations. How often are you in a call and everyone's looking at each other, but you don't have a screen where people are drawing together? right? Yeah, so it's important to buy patience. I'm telling you, pictures go a long way because they feel like, oh, I'm getting something tangible in this discussion, right? Okay, why is it so important? Well, because if we don't stop for a minute, we will often miss our goals. We won't focus on the right goals. We will just start randomly chasing rabbits and sometimes feral cats, right? The rabbits are fast and they're cute, but man, those cats, they've got claws. And I've had both in the room with me, right? And so if we don't focus on the most important goals, we will constantly be chasing improvement and we won't ever get it. We won't reach it. We might get some modicum of something that looks like improvement, but it's not long-term improvement, right? Strategy is important. If we don't pause for a minute to say, should we? What does that mean? We won't be able to respond to the market. If we are strategic and we all are on the same page, going the same direction, and I'm jumping down to team alignment a little bit here, but if we do that, it's so much easier. Once you get good at having strategy blend with execution and they're very cyclical, they feed each other. If you're able to do that, then you actually are able to respond to the market a lot better. You scale better, you can adjust better, and it's because you truly understand your long term and you're not constantly fixing what you didn't understand. Now, there's still some of that, always will be. The other thing is you actually figure out what the real needs are and you solve them. Now, at first, you have a lot of impatience. At every place I've ever been, I've been the first business analyst trying to do strategy at more than half the companies I've worked for. It's not a fun place to be. Man, I won't talk about the things that have been said to me and like in front of others. It's been a ride, guys. It's been a ride. But by the time I'm done, they go, "Oh my God, I can't believe we almost didn't listen to you. Oh, we have to do this for everything." Well, hold on, not everything. Small changes can still be done, right? And again, when you get everyone on the same page, number one, you reduce the potential of change fatigue. People are often more excited to get where they're going, right? You get people that are less involved and more committed. And that's huge. How many of you chase stakeholders to get their time, right? We want to not have to chase people. That's time we could spend actually changing the world. Okay. Things that can drive the recognition that you really need to stop. How do we use AI? AI is the hot topic right now, right? We want to AI everything. I'm going to say it again. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Okay. AI can be amazing or dangerous. Depends on the hands it's in. Okay. Where should I start with the data flat? I told you that. I need a 3-year IT roadmap. That means you don't start implementing IT right away. Pause for a minute. Ask, what should it look like? What does it mean? Where are we going? Things like we have a lot of redundant activities. I have to reduce cost. Well, don't just immediately go to changing things. What is the best bang for your buck for reducing cost? You need to pause for a minute and be strategic about it. So I won't dive into all of these. This just gives you an idea about anytime something implies, I don't know where to start, anytime you hear language that sounds very absolute or very emotional and they need objectivity, a business analyst needs to help them be objective. Even when they think they know what it is and what they need to do, listen to their language, right? Very often you will recognize you'll find a hole and you'll help them avoid a big mistake. When I worked at an oil and gas organization, retail oil and gas, I had someone approach me and say, we need to implement this construction management solution. Okay, what is it doing for you? Why is it there? Blah, 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 blah. They start telling me, how did you go about picking it? Well, we did this and that. And by the time I was done, they were like, uh-oh, can you help us make sure we picked the right one? I sure can. And I tell you what, the day before my last day there, one of the men that was going to take over the company, walking me down the hall, put his arm around me, says, "I've never seen a project like this, man. I'm excited to see what you do next." I did not have the courage to tell him I was gone the next day. Right? So I have the courage now, but yeah, so ask questions, challenge, be confident, be courageous, right? That's strategy. So how do we execute this and build excitement, right? This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where it's really cool. So stay holistic. Find quick wins. As you're figuring out strategy, that doesn't mean you have to wait till strategy's done. You can find small things that you recognize in your conversations can be changed right away. Visual, visual, visual. Pictures. Everyone loves pictures. Okay. Educate others. Teach them as you go. And every project you do will get easier and easier and easier. Don't just jump to tech. Balance it with business. That's hard when you have a lot of technical people in the room. Over time, they'll recognize it and they'll take a step back and let you do your thing, because guess what? If they let you do what you do really well, they get to be the actual superheroes because their implementation of the solution actually solves the problem the first time. Okay? Um, get people thinking long term, inspire them, be passionate. I've been in a room where someone says, I don't know why I want to buy everything you just said. I don't know if it's because you're so excited, but I'm excited. Right? I'm like, well, I'd rather you actually be confident it's the right thing, but we'll go with that. Okay. Perspective is everything. Don't focus on what's easy. Think bigger, right? And that gives you your true north. And you know what? I would actually create a vision statement for a change. The really small ones, it's not necessarily important, but things that are big, get a vision statement. Get something that's inspiring and not about us making money. Okay? It needs to be about the difference we're going to make. Inspire them. So some techniques. We'll start with business. Now you can start at any level, right? I have actually had project level and they go, oh, wait, could you help us figure out everything else? Sure, let's go to functional. And by the time I'm done, they're asking me to do it for their whole company and I start building that overall business strategy perspective. You don't have to start in one particular place, but it is ideal to start business and then go functional and then do project. That way you know you're doing the right projects, right? But it's not hard. It's not a hard, fast rule. So business strategy with big picture, breaking the organization down with pictures, functional decomposition. I actually break some rules and I blend my functional decomposition with some value chain work, right? I like breaking rules. So I break the rules a little bit and I blend my functional decomposition with my value chain. And by the time I'm done, they both work. Now, the value chain is valuable because it points out everything that touches the customer. That brings the biggest risk. It shows you visually what are the things that touch the customer versus what are the things that we do because we have to stay in business functionally, right? But the functional decomposition is what most of your business people actually really like because it helps them understand the things they do that are connected together. And then there's also business model canvas. Business model canvas is ideal when you're talking about a product that you need to work on. And it forces you to think about why this product and should we do this product, right? I just got off a call today helping someone talk about a product and how it fits in the market that they already built. Okay. So it's ideal if you think about where does this fit in the market? Why should we do it? What does it cost to build and maintain compared to what? Who cares? Who cares? So Business Model Canvas does that for you. Getting an understanding of this, when you start talking about this functional decomposition, the next thing I do is I analyze those functional areas. This is not as cool or sexy as the other stuff because it's a spreadsheet, right? It's where I say, what is the maturity and criticality of each function? And the maturity I break down to people, process, data, tech. Because you could have something where the technology is great, but the process is awful, which means you're probably not getting great data. Okay. So, and then that comes out with a risk model that helps me prioritize. And then build guiding visuals. I heat map it. So if you look at the functional decomposition, the value chain, that's all heat mapped. Red's critical, yellow, you should do when you can, green, that's pretty safe. And these should be living. As you change things, you reevaluate your understanding of maturity, criticality, and you change your color codes. So your business is always focusing on what's the most important thing right now. And I do a lot of now, next, laters. I'm not, when we're doing some of these, I'm not constrained to having to put timelines to it. But if you were doing this for your organization, you probably would. But you start with a now, next, later. And then honestly, you don't try to categorize with time frames the stuff that's in the later. You might never get there, and that's okay. But the now should definitely be timelined, and the next should be timelined. Okay, there's a difference. It has to be okay to have yellow and red. Yes. It's not a shame issue. I love that. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about functional. Now, this is where more business analysts live. This is where I do still do a functional decomposition of a function. So like accounting and finance, they've got like anywhere from 3 to 6 functions. Accounts payable, accounts receivable, financial reporting, so on and so forth, right? And each one of them need to have their own representation of understanding. I flow my functional decompositions into SIPOCs. And the SIPOC is where I start understanding who are my stakeholders that should be involved. How often, when you are asked to help a process, do you get the people that do that process? Right? That's the majority of the stakeholders you get. But if you don't have the people that represent the inputs that make that possible and the people that consume from it, you could accidentally not solve root problem or mess things up for other people. So SIPOC helps you get your boundaries, your scope, and then I actually use my SIPOC to build a scope model. Again, cool pictures, little people, color, for those that can see it. Sorry, not everyone can see the color. But color, for those that can, actually affects the way your brain connects dots. So it's really important. There are capability models, things like that, right? So then we analyze. After I get a SIPOC, that gives me my high-level buckets of process. Then I can start digging into the steps for each of those big buckets of behaviors. And I start building out my process models. Then I crack it. Keep, remove, add, change. I like to use that acronym because it forces us to remember we should talk about what shouldn't change, not just what should, right? So when I crack it, I'm like, and I do this, one of the things that I do that buys time, that buys investment and patience is, how often have you seen a team or a business analysis resource go into a room, have a conversation. They may or may not draw pictures while they're talking. And then they go back to their desk and they clean it all up. And then they come back and they say, does this process look right? And they talk through it and they say, oh, I got that wrong. I got this wrong. I got that wrong. Let me go back and fix that. And then they come back again. And eventually they start talking about what should change. I do all of that in one meeting, right? While they're talking, I'm drawing out a really ugly version and I'm capturing, usually with their faces, what hurts. Oh, then we do this. Oh. Okay, well, I'm going to track that hurts, and I'm going to ask you more about that later, right? Read your rooms. When you read the room, they want to work with you because they feel heard and important and special. And then, so what I do is I have that one conversation where I figure that out. I do go back and draw, and then I come back, and in that meeting, I validate, get improvement, everything, all at once, okay? There's capability modeling. Capability modeling is both architecture and business analysis. They both have different approaches to doing it. So it's whatever works in your world. And then after you get all of that crack stuff, business crack, you will, sorry, my brain goes too many directions. You will actually get them to prioritize those things, right? And so you get them through conversations. You at least get them to bucket in now, next, later, same as business. And then you rank order the most important things. Everything that falls in the now, you get rank ordered. 1, 2, 3, 4. Otherwise, you could have this big bucket of 40 things and everyone goes, I don't know where to start. Get at least your top 5 to 10, okay? Through rank ordering. And I do that rank ordering and I still build the now, next, later roadmap. And often what you see over here, this is an example of something that I did where there were buckets of functions and I grouped it into the stream of the now. I grouped it into the stream of functions for the now, next, later. Okay, I'm not seeing questions yet. I'm seeing good comments though. You have to go to kindergarten colors and charts. That's great. Okay. Project strategy. We're almost done, guys. Project strategy. And wait, I think I accidentally skipped it. Where did it go? Okay. I seem to be missing project strategy, but I'm going to talk to you about it. Okay. Project strategy. You do a lot of the same stuff. With project strategy, you do process models. You still do your process models. BPMN, anybody? Changed my world. Changed my world. I went so many years just doing process flows, and there's a difference. BPMN tells a story in itself. It's huge. It's amazing. I feel like I'm on that show where everything's black and I'm like, I feel like I should be telling you a ghost story. Sorry. Distracted. So the project strategy, you have process models. You still do the process models, you still crack it. The biggest difference between functional and project is that in project strategy, you get down to the weeds. You define your backlog, you get your features, you get your you get your high level requirement statements, right? You don't get detailed. You need to at least get your features with some really high level understanding. You understand what are the capabilities of the system and what are the different phases of implementation you would actually do. That's your project strategy. And then other than that, you still have a now, next, later. You still have the process models. You still might build out a capability model of what that solution would do. But project strategy is a lot more specific to a solution. And remember, solution doesn't mean tech. Solution is any combination of people, process, data, and or technology to solve a problem. You could have a solution that all it is, I have often caused a project to never actually get kicked off because by the time I'm done having conversations with a project strategy discussion, I find out they just need to stop doing a thing they're doing. Or I find out they just need to be trained on the solution and that will solve the majority of the problems. That's not an actual project, right? Do you guys need me to share visuals of the backlogs and stuff like that? I'm pretty sure most of you are probably very familiar with that kind of stuff, right? Okay. Now, other things. When you're talking market, you're getting force field analysis. That's about what's pushing and pulling in the market. You will do SWOT, right? SWOT, some people use that for internal analysis. It's not my favorite for internal analysis. Opportunities and threats are a lot more intended. Its intention is to be outside of your organization. There are other tools to evaluate from an internal perspective that are more ideally situated for that. So SWOT is great for you to understand what are the opportunities and threats out there. What are the strengths by which we could take advantage of the opportunities or avoid the threat? And what are the weaknesses that make us susceptible to the threat or a weakness we might build to take advantage of an opportunity, right? So it's very much about looking outside of the organization, which a lot of BAs don't necessarily get to do. Balanced scorecard, again, that's a lot more about the higher level business strategy and overall health from a data perspective, where it measures not just the money, which a lot of us like to measure, but how are we growing? How are we growing our people? How are we growing our capabilities and tools? How are we growing, improving processes for efficiencies and things like that? Capability models, we talked about that a little bit, but it's also at a level where capability models will help you understand your red, yellow, green light stuff and what should we focus on. Product strategy, you're getting into personas, you're actually, getting into the head and emotions of your customers and you're doing empathy maps, figuring out what they care about. I actually got a chance. I don't get to do this very much. I don't get to do product strategy that's market-based very much. And I actually had a chance to run the 3-day workshop. And the persona process was so fun. The kind of stuff that our people came up with to describe their customers was, oh, man, that was 3 days of fun, man. Okay. Last bits that I would tell you. Get people engaged. See each other, hear each other. What does that mean? Turn on the cameras. There's so much you cannot capture or understand about the problems in an organization if you cannot see the emotional reactions of people. It tells you where's their pain. It can tell you what might we not be successful culturally. Culture, culture, culture. I can't tell you how important it is. Reusability, right? When people look at what we do, they think, oh, what you're going to do is not a long-term deliverable that I can use. It's one and done, and there's limited value. No, when I build my product, my deliverables are tangible deliverables that are usable long-term. They should guide your work for a while to come. And they're visual, and they're engaging, and they're useful. And you can use process models not just to help you understand what should be improved, but to teach new people, to help different departments understand how they're affecting each other. You can use it for so many things. Okay, reusability is huge. Make it so they can see it. Don't talk and take notes. I actually had a business analysis team once that I came in, I became, I inherited a group, and all they ever did was sit in the room, right? And then they've got their little notepad. Okay, you do this. Okay. And then you do that. And then okay, and then you do that. Do you feel interrogated? Yeah. So I said, I don't want you writing on a notepad. I want you up at the screen. I want you drawing. Record. Exactly, Aaron. AI can take your notes today. Even back then, I was like, record your meeting. Even if AI can't take your notes, you engage, you write what you're hearing where everyone can see it. Okay. And then challenge the room. I have had business analysts that are great at this and not so great at this. And guess what? The ones that don't have the courage, the confidence, the I don't care if I sound dumb, right? I don't care if I'm wrong. I care that I get the right information. So I'm going to ask the dumb questions. I'm going to probe. I'm going to challenge and say, but why? But where? Does it have to be that? What do you think about this? So I actually love my business analysts to take psychology classes. Psychology is huge. Okay. Don't get there for them. Help them get there. What kind of solutions in future do people adopt better? Things that are your idea or things that are theirs? Things that are their idea. That's how you save the day. You're a quiet hero. Okay. All right. Any questions? I already mentioned strategy cyclical. The work you do should constantly be evaluated, updated, reused. Any questions? Any comments? Okay. Well, I definitely filled that time, Thea. Sorry. I wasn't sure I could.
I think you did a fine job, Laura. This is going to be a recording people are going to watch for years to come. Thank you so much. We will be posting this on LinkedIn, so it's available for people. Laura, you bring a wealth of proven, tested experience to us. Thank you so much for doing that. What are your next steps in your career?
I'm trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. I'm not sure I ever will. But doing this strategy work, honestly, I've learned that I really, really love strategy because I've learned the bigger impact it can take long term, even though it's an uphill battle in a lot of situations. I tell you what, though, I love mentoring and leading. There's nothing like once you've helped other people grow and do what you do and do what you do well that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a drug. So my goal is eventually, I don't know what my actual employment career looks like, but I know my long term is retiring into continuing to help probably the smaller businesses that can't afford great consulting and
Mm-hmm.
teaching. God, I love teaching. I really do love teaching. Yeah, it doesn't pay as much, but man, it's fulfilling.
It is. It is.
Then you and I
Wow.
ought to talk, dear. I'm your local university professor.
I actually really I don't know if going over a minute or two is okay, but
Okay.
I was going to get an MIS degree,
Mm-hmm.
and in my
That's what
That's
my
what I got.
PhD is in.
yeah, I was going to do that. I had a software development degree already, and I wanted to go back for an MIS, and in my first class, I wound up with a restraining order against a football player on campus. I was in my 40s. I'm like, I could be your mom. What is this? Sorry. So I found the only degree that was all online. And it was actually something called organizational leadership, which funny was consulting and andragogy. And I wound up teaching most of the classes I was in. So the dean, like when I was graduating, he pulled me aside after he recognized who I was. And he was like, you won't lose your place in line, but you're standing right here for a minute. And then when he was done, I had written a 40-page organizational analysis of the company I worked for. And he said, I read the first 2 pages, gave you 100, but I'm going to read the rest. And so I was like, he goes, you should teach for us. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I will. So that's a good point. That's a good point.
Awesome. Well, I will stop the recording. We can stick around and keep chatting.